I think you're here. Are you
Oh,
leading
I
the
am
meeting
leading
tonight?
today.
I want to now see
Thank you, dear.
So I've seen
Well,
Francesca do it, who opened, I saw Lisa do it, and I want to see Randy.
Going to do it, absolutely.
community might be here.
Joy.
Know who's who.
A wonderful thing,
Okay,
absolutely.
let's get going. Hi. Okay, no problem. Let's start the meeting. Calling to order.
I'm sorry.
Has everybody had a chance to look at the June minutes?
Yes,
Yes.
Can we approve them?
yes.
Can
Somebody
I
make a-
just ask whether it's possible to get more content in the minutes? The minutes don't seem,
No,
These
The
are
answer is
so-called
no.
action minutes.
action minutes, we tried, no, doesn't work that way. Nice try.
City used to actually have someone transcribe what happened. We had full detailed minutes.
Which was terrific,
Yeah, and then they said it cost too much money, so.
and that was that.
isn't
They're also
there s-
recorded and they're on YouTube as well, so you can hopefully go back and listen to the exact words that your fellow committee members say.
All our
Is
pearls.
it, I mean, is this true for all committees? I mean, other commissions and committees
All
have real,
committees, most commissions,
most commissions only have action minutes?
yes. Let's see here. Parks and Recs does, I believe.
Has
Traffic
only action
does.
minutes.
Yeah, and then all the committees do.
We're just a committee.
Okay, well, then I just have a correction. So, well, a couple corrections. One is, under 2, it says a motion was made to approve the June meeting action minutes. I think that should say May. Is that right?
This
Right.
is July, right?
No, she's talking about the minutes of the June meeting. So we wanted to approve the
Right.
the minutes of the meeting the month before.
Great.
Yep.
Right. And I think that there were
Batch.
2 members who did not vote to approve the action minutes because they were not there in May. And I think one was Leneve, and I forget who else was absent in May.
Was me.
Okay. So I think that those 2 folks did not vote to approve the minutes since they weren't there.
Thank you.
That would be tough.
And and then the item 7.6, it said Member Moffett discussed the upcoming NEA grant application, which is what it said in the agenda. But I just think as part of the public record, it's a little misleading because then people will think that there is an upcoming NEA grant application. And I'm just wondering if we could say Member Moffett presented information on placemaking grants, including NEA and Art Place America.
That is more accurate.
Presented info on placemaking grants, including,
Including National Endowment for the Arts, Our Town grants, and Art Place America grants.
Our Town, and what was the third one?
Art Place America?
Okay, cool.
Anybody else, any other corrections? If there are none, can someone approve them as corrected?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. I see no public comment. Let's move on. We have 4 announcements from committee members. Are there announcements? That always scares me. Sorry, no, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong. Announcements from committee members. Are there any announcements?
Yes.
Yes.
I have some upcoming events that people might want to know about at the Albany Bulb this Sunday, this Saturday, July 14th, from 10 to 12. Love the Bulb will be sponsoring an art and history walk.
Great.
And also another upcoming event is on August 25th. We will be having Lori Twitchell from Blake Garden, who will be holding a workshop for making books out of natural materials. And it's a 2-part workshop, and folks who come to the workshop then will finish up their books and install them at the library, at the Albany Library display cases on September 8th. And that September 8th event gathering where people will discuss what they discovered in making their books will be open to the public.
Can you give me the times on those two events at the Albany Bulb?
So the first one, July 14th, is at 10 a.m., 10 to 12.
Great.
And the one on the 25th is 10 to 12:30. And the one on September 8th is at the Albany Library Edith Stone Room.
Right.
And that will be from 10 to 1.
Great, thank you.
And we have yet more events coming up. September 16th, we have a dance mini fest Sunday from 10 to 12. And that is going to be a pilot for a larger dance festival in May 2019.
And that will be at the Bulb.
Yes, those dance events are at the Bulb.
Great.
And just one final announcement, which is not about the Bulb. And I don't know if it goes in announcements, but on Sunday I went to the Alameda Mini Maker Fair.
Yeah, how was it?
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And it would be great if we could have something like that. And I think that kind of participatory art event would be wonderful for Albany to sponsor.
You know, that would be something, I think, if we were thinking about the Arts and Greens Festival, to have that have a mini, I've thought about doing an instrument building workshop at that festival too, and I think that a mini maker fair at that festival, would be a really cool thing, and because people like them, and we all like them. They're wonderful fairs. So I forget what happened to Arts and Green this year.
I thought that it's canceled for this year.
Yeah, so is it canceled for next year as well? Or is it
There
like
is no Arts and
off?
Greens Festival planned for 2019.
Okay, great.
As
So
it
we have a
currently
blank slate.
stands.
Awesome. Any other announcements from committee members?
Sorry, Susan, just for my own curiosity, what's a mini maker fair?
So it's a kids' version of a maker fair, and maker fairs are kind of fairs where you can go and make everything from robots to carpentry to Etsy type, handicrafts, quilting stuff. And it's kind of just
People
go and participate.
don't people also display things that they have made? Artists also put their own work on display, like the Big Makers Fair in San Mateo after Burning Man. People bring their big Burning Man sculptures down there, and there's those things.
Great.
Some of them are kind of commercial and some of them are not. That's a really good idea, though. Cool. Okay, can we move on? Announcements from staff?
Yes.
Yes.
No meetings in August for any commission committee. It's a month of rest. The September 10th meeting has been moved to September 17th at 7 p.m. at the Edith Stone Room in the Albany Library, 1247 Marin Avenue. And that is because of, forgive my ignorance on this, a Jewish holiday. I'm just not sure.
Rosh
which-
Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
The
you.
Jewish holiday.
The Jewish holiday. And then the meeting in November has been moved to Tuesday, which I believe is the next day, at the community center, other side of the building, and that's because of Veterans Day.
Great.
And October 8th also is moved a day.
No, I think that was tossed around from Eva, but it's not a city holiday.
Oh, so that's not it.
Yeah, that's not,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so you can take that off your old,
Oh, I got the old agenda.
yeah.
So I'm sorry, when is the October meeting again?
Normal, it's the same bat
Oh,
time,
okay,
same
got
bat
it.
place. I can figure it out right now, but there is no adjustment to it. So the second
Okay.
Monday. I think it was just a mistake, but that's Columbus Day, also known as Indigenous Peoples Days, and it's just not a city holiday. So
Okay, great.
we'll be there.
It's great that it's not a city holiday.
Here.
So there's, does that do it for you from?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Presentation? You're looking at the empty chair.
I'm looking at the agenda.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think there's anything under presentation.
Okay. We have a lot of work to do in the sevens categories. So can we just get to that? Unfinished business, the PAPP and the work plan timeline. This is our new one, which includes creating a new one and prioritizing the work left in the old one, right? The 2018 one? Okay. So we have the work plan. It's a little bit hard for me to know where to start on this. Does anybody have a good idea about, I think one thing that I would like to know, one thing that was on my mind was, what has to be done by January 1st, 2019?
So, the work plan and projects plan are scheduled for 2019. So nothing of these listed things need to be done before that. However, there is some money issues
Right.
with spending, I believe, Measure WW money, which was a matching fund from the Ohlone Greenway Public Art Projects. More to come from that from your normal staff member, Eva, who is here. Her and Shelley, who is the staff liaison for the Parks and Recreation Commission, are working to figure out how to spend that money. That's really the only deadline for previous work done. I believe this agenda item is on here just to kind of start this process because Eva has never done a work plan before, as well as just reminding that the PAPP was extended through 2018 to sync up with the work plan.
That's right.
So keep in mind that ideally, I believe the process is you want to have the PAPP done, or at least an idea of the PAPP, before you go to city council,
Right.
because both traditionally need kind of approval, but if they're in one nice package, I believe it could save some back and forth and save any corrections that are necessary.
The things that go on the PAPP as opposed to things that go on the work plan, are they simply things that are going to draw down the Art and Public Places Fund? Or are there other categories that maybe go on?
Forgive me, it's going to take a little bit to get the gunk off the wheels. It's been a year or so since I've been here. The PAPP is a vehicle for spending the money that Peter was just mentioning.
Yeah.
So I believe that the PAPP should be set to encompass projects that you would like to use to actually spend that money. Whereas the projects plan encapsulates all of your projects. The work plan. PAPP being one of those,
Okay.
The community center, foyer gallery being another one of those. Fall into haiku, I guess that's part of the PAPP. But, so I guess the work plan is for things that you've accomplished in the past and goals for the future. One of those goals and accomplishments was the PAPP.
So the PAPP is basically part of the work plan?
Yes, I think for this committee, probably a pretty integral part of it.
Yes.
So the PAPP is basically a spending plan.
Yeah.
And how much is in the fund? How much needs to get spent by when? And how much of this 54,000 is WW with the deadline?
We don't have a deadline for that. The deadline is for Measure WW money because it's a county grant. There's a lot of acronyms going on here. The Art and Public Places Fund. I do not have that current amount, and I'm sorry for that. We just redid our whole new fiscal year, and it's not ready, and I wasn't able to bring that. So that's on staff. Doesn't go away. It's a fund that takes 1.75% of all development above, I think, $1 million and increases. I mean, until Peter has been on the committee the longest, one of the longest, that money wasn't touched for at least 4 or 5, 6 years before the PAPP was created. So it can linger.
So it can roll over. We don't
Oh,
lose it.
absolutely.
We do not lose it if we don't spend it.
It is yours.
Awesome.
It is the city's to spend at the recommendation of the Arts Committee.
Well, one of the things I'd like to clarify as we're discussing the work plan and the PAPP together is what kind of restrictions are there on the sorts of things that the Art and Public Places funds can be used for?
Peter, do you want to speak into the mic?
Oh, sure, sorry. As an example, Fall into Haiku has been allotted $2250 for a 2-year period. If you actually read the Art and Public Places, the master plan and the language that set up the Art and Public Places Fund, it doesn't really mention anything in a category of literature which would extend, performance art or music or something that's, say, ephemeral and not a standalone work of public art, which I think is okay, but I guess I would like to make sure that, well, I'd like to find out, number one, what the city's interpretation of a legitimate expenditure is, and based on that, I think we should formally revise whatever wording is used to define what those funds are for, so that we can use them and proceed with some confidence that that it's okay to do it. And I just don't know I don't know where we are on that.
I thought that this came up last time and that maybe Eva was going to consult with the city attorney to see if there were restrictions on the money to be in a strict definition of what that fund was.
It has been discussed
Yeah.
several times, actually, to try and get some precision.
Yeah.
But we don't have it yet. And I think if we're going to be planning and spending money, then we need to know that we can legitimately spend that money.
Great. Yeah, and just as a preface for the entire meeting, certain things that I may not be in the loop or was not informed of, I'm just going to take a note of, and an answer will get back to you.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
You haven't been here for a while.
So I guess can we make a really strong note about that, is that we want to really look over the legal definition of what can be spent, the restrictions and definitions of things that can happen with the public fund. Because as we saw last meeting, it's somewhat outdated in terms of anything having to do with placemaking or performance art, and that seems to be like a really great avenue for us to go in, and we need to be able to know that we can go there. Great.
So Jenny, you were asking about how to proceed, and I'm not sure this is the best idea. Maybe someone's got a better way of doing it, but I think it would be I think what we could do is to look at on the work plan, to look at the 2017-19 policy review and initiatives and go through those one by one and see where we are on each of them.
Right.
Whether there's still work to be done, whether we want to extend them, or, take them out entirely, and then look at what is on the PAPP that is, say, not necessarily in this policy review and initiatives. I'm not sure everything is in there. And then think about new things that we might want to add and where they would fit in, whether they're going to be part of just the work plan or whether they have to be whether there's going to be costs involved, and we're going to have to come up with some, with money, and are we going to have to partner with some other department, or is this something we're going to spend all on our own?
I would say that that's a really good way, except that in our agenda for tonight, we have things that are in this part already. I wonder, are we allowed to bounce back and forth between items in the agenda? Do you have to, we're not allowed to?
It's not, well, it's not the best course of action. Just keep in mind the PAPP and the work plan update were put on here to keep it fresh in your mind, and also there's a timeline up on the screen there. Generally, committees and commissions won't start working on their work plan until 2019. That's recommended by council. We still have half of 2018 left, if you want to put it into perspective from that regard. Please feel free to ask about anything that's currently on there to get a recommendation, but what Peter just suggested is a perfect thing to do in maybe the month that we have off, is look over the initiatives one by one by yourself and bring it back to the committee in the fall when you have dedicated work time to work on the work plan.
Okay,
all right.
great, thank you.
Can I ask you a question about the meaning of policy review and initiatives? Does this mean that the bullet points are policies that we're supposed to review? Is that what that means? And that we're supposed to review them between 2017 and 2019, or?
Right, so the language that comes, a quick background of this, the language that a lot of this comes from City Council. City Council has pretty deliberate language that they want each committee to be successful in, and it's a generic language. So other committees and commissions do a lot more policy review than the Arts Committee. So it's just a generic language. Without dumbing it down too much, which is not my goal here, but initiatives and accomplishments are what we have done. Policy reviews and initiatives are what we want to do.
Great, so in terms of Peter's thing, all of our desire, I think, to rewrite the scope, if we can, if we're allowed to, of the PAPP, that's a policy review. That will be a
Yes.
policy review.
Liam, potentially informally, but just to better understand and grasp all the information, would it be possible to have a document that has both the PAPP and the work plan items on a single sheet? And, even if these things, which are zero cost, we could put their cost at zero and have the total, and we could, do a running calculation. So we saw everything together instead of separate, and we could see, if we have $10,000 left, maybe we use 100 to investigate this or 200 to do that, just to get kind of a more global view.
Yeah, let me, I'm going to put that to the side and take a note. Again, it's a very consistent look for work plans that the city council would like, and that generally comes out in the fall. So I would just hesitate doing too much work now before we know exactly what council wants it to look like.
Okay.
And this particular work plan is how council wanted it to look at the last time that we worked on this. The PAPP being, again, just a piece of this is why it's a separate note. But it's noted, and I'm happy to run it past staff and further up the ladder, for sure.
Yeah, and I think also it might be useful before council decides on a format to have something that's maybe more suited to what the Arts Committee does, which is, kind of doing initiatives more than policy review, and it's because it's quite confusing to me whether we're supposed to be reviewing any of this as policy. To me, this looks like a to-do list. But I think we do have policies that we do want to review, and that maybe should be separate, because the question of what the Public Art Fund can be spent on is an important policy review.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, noted, absolutely. Just another thing, just to keep in the back of your mind whenever doing any of this, the scope from perspective of the city council has typically been on the smaller side of the, oh gosh, it just left my brain. The name of it, the general, oh gosh, sorry, I'm on the spot here. I will get back to you the name. Anyways, there's a framework for which the city council provides where we feel that these committees and commissions should be focused on these things. The Arts Committee is
That
relatively
was
small.
at the bottom of this page, it says, council strategic goals.
Strategic plan. Thank you, Peter.
Strategic plan,
The
right.
council's strategic plan and goals is, like I said, a framework for what they feel the Arts Committee and committees and commissions across the board should be working on. And the Arts Committees is unfortunately relatively small. The work's not small. It's just the actual scope of work from city council's perspective is basically go out and do art. So you need to kind of work within those guidelines. But you're absolutely right, Susan. Make sure that there are clear, defined processes to work towards.
It
And it
is
sounds like
called
Peter
out
has
in
one.
that document so that we can look at it and say, because everything we do is supposed to align with that. And the second thing I would mention is we have a mission statement. And when we're looking at this, it's a good idea to review that mission paragraph and make sure that whatever we're doing is in line with that. And I guess we've been admonished in the past to say, you may want to do a lot more. Your idea of art may be much more all-encompassing, but this is what your task is, and don't stray too far beyond that.
And just so I understand what the task is the task to go out and do art, or is the task to promote business vitality and advance economic development in the arts?
That is the official task that you've been given.
Okay.
For a council that, when did these strategic goals, was focused on economic vitality and economic development.
But
So that
that's
is
not the only thing that we're doing.
right. That is the council's strategic goal that was given to you by the council.
Okay. And so within that, it seems that the things that we've been talking about, such as considering art that is not just objects, all of that would be very much in line with promoting business vitality and advancing economic development.
Yes.
Okay.
And so
So
our-
we're not straying there. We're not going outside the scope. We're focusing more tightly on the scope that we've been
Actually
given.
doing exactly what the city council wants us to do.
Great.
They don't want to do that work. We should do that work.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but is also are you saying in a very polite way that we really shouldn't tax staff too much because we're such a small committee?
I mean, not with this process, no.
Okay,
I
cool.
think that all staff, you know, this is a big part of the staff's project is fleshing all of this out, and you create the document, but staff, you know, puts it together.
Okay.
So, does that make sense? You
Yeah.
put the info into the document and staff puts it
So it
together.
sounds like we should be looking at our mission statement. We should all be thinking about this in the next month, and we should develop a more precise and yet broader vision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, the mission statement is on our website.
Right.
And this particular thing about the strategic plan.
Yeah.
That's a document that I've seen. I don't know where it is exactly, but maybe you could send that to everybody so we can, and call out the page that it's on. So we just have that framework to think about.
Yes, and I believe that it went through that work plan. I will do this research, or Eva will do this research. I just want, again, to keep in your minds that could change.
Okay.
What you are presenting to council and how it needs to be presented to council very well could change. So the successes that you've been a part of and the things you've accomplished and the policies review and initiatives that are moving forward we can continue to work on those, but let's wait until we have what that template looks like
Okay.
from
So are
council.
they actually discussing changing the?
You know, I'm not entirely, it's updated. I don't think it's changed so much, but it is updated, and I've just been out of the committee and commission's realm for a year or so I just don't know.
Okay.
But I can find out.
Does everybody feel okay? Does everybody about what we're doing? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay. Can we move on from this item? And talk about the sculpture loan program?
You should say, we're moving on.
Oh, we're moving on. Thank you, Peter. We're moving on. We're moving on. It's 7:30 and I'm already impatient. We're moving on. Keep it going.
Keep it going.
So
Let it go.
one of the things that we were going to do as a group, as individuals of the group, was to go and look at the sites. So did everybody do that?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
I have serious questions about some of the sites, but I have notes. Did you take notes?
I took pictures and.
Oh, good for you. Okay.
I have
Just-
some, yeah, I know what you mean.
So we were tasked with going out and looking at the sites and seeing what size pad we should put on those sites. And when I looked at them, like this corner, come on. That's a kind of a weird picture of that corner. I don't know if I should just launch into
I
my
gave
my
Liam
thoughts.
a bunch of other photos.
Great, thank you. That's a better picture.
And I took some places where I think things maybe should go instead of that.
Good, thank you, because that's a terrible place. Okay, so should we just launch into this and go over it site by site? Can we do that?
Well, what is it that what's our task?
I
to,
thought our task was to find out, to recommend what size pad should be at which site. And then to
Ava
look
was
at
also
the
going to
art.
inquire, though, with the artists and other city managers,
And I have
right?
all of
'Cause-
that information, and there was
Oh,
a
good.
staff report as well.
Oh, good. Oh, good. That's awesome.
So this has become a little bit more of an update rather than as much of an action item. Sorry, I'm distracted here. I'm just trying to find that first spot with Susan's pictures here. Okay, so this is similar. So a quick background I can give as well on these spots is these were spots recommended by the design group who did the Ohlone Greenway update, and the committee recommended these sites.
Okay.
The Arts Committee did, and I want to say that was either late 2015 or early 2016. It's been a long time. Okay, Susan, we'll go back to yours. I just want to focus. I'm going to go along with what staff gave me to work with today. Okay. So you can start by, or we can kind of flesh these things out. We can discuss the spaces. The goal that we want to get to tonight is we feel that it would be good to have a subcommittee on this. Staff is spending a lot of time kind of going back and forth between the artists and Public Works and trying to figure out the space. And it is hard. It's a lot of staff. Staff has day jobs as well. So two things. One, let's get an idea for each of the space. I can give you some information from the Orinda person who does the Orinda Sculpture Alone art projects, as well as figuring out a subcommittee, or at least nominating somebody, talking about a subcommittee, coming back and electing a subcommittee maybe at the next meeting, but finding a way to get the committee more involved in the accrual and back and forth with artists for each one of these locations.
Okay. So that's the northwest corner of Washington Avenue. When I went there today, I was a little bit confused about where exactly, there's a long strip on the western side, on the bordering Masonic Avenue, and I thought maybe that was the strip that they were thinking about. It's 50 feet long, and it doesn't seem to me, and there's 2 dead trees in it, so I thought it would be even longer because you're going to take those trees out. So in terms of a place that's with a feature, it was very hard for me to figure out a pad or a single piece of sculpture that wouldn't look completely random in that space. Like, it just didn't seem, on a scale level, it seemed like too big a space. Did anybody else feel that way when you looked at it? What did you think, Peter?
I didn't understand which space was
I
going to
think
be
it was
selected.
this. I think it's that.
Well, I was looking at, because the BART tracks kind of take over that entire area, so
Yeah.
if everything on the BART tracks, plus a little feet on either side, is forbidden, then are we just left with that strip, or is the area on the BART tracks okay?
It's not forbidden. Anything underneath the BART tracks probably has to be a certain height per BART. BART owns, if you can imagine it this way, BART owns from Masonic to about 10 feet past the easternmost edge of the structure.
Oh,
And then the city is the rest. So that
so BART owns
Give or
from
take,
Masonic, so.
cuts
well,
off.
Oh,
that
wow.
can't be quite right, because that play structure we're putting in there was moved closer to Masonic to get.
I think it was moved closer
To
to
Gabriel.
Spokane, or St.
St.
Gabriel.
Really?
Yeah, it was moved further away from the BART.
So everything from Masonic to 10 feet on the eastern side of BART is BART?
For the most part, it's a lot of property, so it
So
would
we
be
can't
hard
put
for me-
anything on the BART property?
Not necessarily.
Oh,
It's just an added process.
Oh.
Did
But so
anybody else go there and think weirdly about it?
Well, I thought, so just real quick, without BART's approval, so it would have to go in the sunlit area, is what we're looking at, more or less?
So you see these? Do you see halfway through the pathway here?
Yeah,
That's 10-ish feet.
okay.
So I mean, imagine drawing that down through here, right? So the idea was kind of this space here, and again, that was a spot recommended by the design group.
I don't think that's an ideal spot, at least going north on the path, because there's cars parked here often, so it'll be blocked. Maybe coming south, you could get a good visual of the sculpture, but I wouldn't think going north, because there's cars parked there.
I think basically of the 3 sites that were shown in the photos that we were given, only the Dartmouth site was appropriate. All of the other sites were either on slopes that were inappropriate or filled with distractions from vegetation, or had other interruptions like the vertical columns.
Right.
And so all of the sites seemed inappropriate except for the Dartmouth site.
I would also worry from this angle that anybody driving wanting to turn right, you just don't want an obstruction depending on what the work was.
Visual obstruction,
Visual
yeah.
obstruction. And
Plus, there's already a stop sign there.
Yeah, I'm just, again, depending on what the work was.
Yeah.
But, you know, when we were looking at some of those work that took up some space, you just don't want something too close to the sidewalk, you know?
The corners and the intersections tend to be congested areas because there's paths that come together. They necessarily widen, leaving less space. There's signage. There's just a lot more things going on. And sculpture would either interfere or be just kind of irrelevant or just another bit of noise.
Yeah.
Is it better to move them out of that area, more down in between the blocks where there's not as much going on?
You mean like on the other side of the track?
Well, yeah, well, not on, I mean, down the strip, more down toward.
Yeah, I had a picture of that. I mean, so basically in each of the locations, the recommended locations, even if you ignore the square, but if you go to another photo, I mean, each of the locations was recommending putting the sculpture where there's a lot of non-grass planting, but most of the good locations for the three northern sites, I think, were where there is kind of an open grassy area. And I'm just wondering if we could save some time by just, rather than discussing it here, to like move to the subcommittee, and the subcommittee goes out and says, put it
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. That is the goal of
It's a
this
really good
agenda
idea.
item, is to create a subcommittee, and I think that that's a fantastic idea. Before you elect your subcommittee and go any further, I also just want to reiterate that I guess I was on the committee at that point. I mean, these were selected sites
Right.
for this, and
So
it's
we've done it before. We've done the work.
and I don't know if it's okay or not okay to change midstream. I would have to do some more research on that as staff, but keep in mind that this is using matching funds that we do want to spend, or at least figure out by the end of the year. And we have selected sites. So Susan, I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying not to pick new sites, but keep that in mind when forming your subcommittee, that we want to be in the kind of sprint stage here.
So these are WW funds, I'm sorry.
It's a match. It's a match. The entire Ohlone Greenway update was a match.
I was on the committee when that selection was done, and it was not a very precise selection. It was more like, these are power corners, and this is where they should be, but we weren't
Absolutely.
looking at it in this kind of detail. So I think of it sort of in that general area. It would be okay to move it.
Can I make a recommendation about forming a subcommittee? Can I ask people who really have a good sense of scale and who are very visual to be on that subcommittee? And that would not be me. I only know that it would be really off to put them in some of the places they're supposed to be put, but I couldn't say why. But I think somebody who really knows, who has a good eye, from like maybe even an architectural point of view, somebody like that should be on that committee. Just because otherwise it's going to look super random, like pieces of popcorn. And it will just seem weird, I think.
Well, whatever the subcommittee decides is bound to get a lot of discussion from others, so
Yeah, well, no, that's true.
There is
But if some.
a check.
Yeah. So does anybody want to be on that committee, that subcommittee? Oh, man.
Come on,
Who's good spatially?
who's got time?
Who's got time?
Who's got time?
Good call.
Okay, well, I'll volunteer, because I just work right up the street, so it's easy for me to.
It's easy for me, too. I
Sites.
just don't feel like I have the right skills.
You're fine. Come on,
I'll do it.
Yeah,
We'll do it
all right,
together.
all right.
Peter and me.
okay.
But really, we're going to need backup.
But everyone will,
Please.
kibitz, everyone will join in
Please,
and,
just funnel your ideas. Yeah.
And and a subcommittee reports back to the committee, so you always have that to rely on, is that part of your job here as well is, working with the artists, working with the space. We will work with Public Works, but having an eye of these kind of spaces. And thank you for moving so quickly, because I know that's important for the committee. Just to keep in mind, one thing that we learned from the Orinda project is that some don't have pads. Some do have pads. Some are bolted directly into the ground. Some are not bolted into the ground. They're bolted into the pad. One thing that Eva learned from discussing with him is that they are not a committee, so they have less restrictions that you have. But some of them are just put places, and whether it's rebar driven down into the ground and bolted, and somehow attached to that. I'm not an engineer. That happens sometimes, and then there's other places that actually have concrete pads. So
that's kinda cool.
you don't need to refine, you don't need to pigeonhole yourself to say we couldn't put a pad here, we can't put art here. So it's something
So
to think about.
have the three artists all been contacted and they've all
They've been
agreed?
I believe that staff is having a hard time, go figure, getting exact representations of the art. I know for a fact one or two of them are kind of standing, and the other one is a little bit lower to the ground.
Yeah.
I wish I had better information for you on that. I do know that there are ones that are many pieces to it, and the pieces can move to create different looks. I think that they're like right angles.
Yes.
Oh, right.
They're like right angles, right? So it
Yes,
could be a
yes.
zigzag, it could be a square, they could have those, kind of connected looks like those little kid toys have that kind of slide apart.
Yeah, yeah,
So, something to think about for the subcommittee for sure.
So in terms of, so maybe we have to identify the spaces, but then if, as you say, they don't all need a pad, then we would want to know what art is going to go where. And to do that, we need the committee to sign off on that. And then you want to get all this, you want to spend the money by the end of the year, or you want to have just decisions made by the end of the year?
Let's have your full-time staff get back to you exactly how that wants to look. I just know from talking with our department director that there is a time limit to some of the matching funds. So keep that in mind.
Okay,
Because the selection of the art and the selection of the site go hand in hand, and the committee has to sign off on both pieces of it before we can go ahead.
I think that would be prudent. I think that some sites probably lend themselves better to other sites
right,
than
yeah.
other sites, to certain pieces.
We can make a suggestion saying this art in this space,
right,
but,
and not in that space.
yeah, and as far as the space goes, then the city has to sign off on that too. Who knows
And the
what
Public Works
restrictions
Department
are.
is on board. They are willing to assist in this, in at least the engineering aspect of it.
Well, that's one good site that we don't have to think about,
No, that's a great site.
yeah. Okay,
Okay, so a motion for the subcommittee?
Yeah, can I move to form a subcommittee? Or should I move that Peter and I are on the subcommittee? What am I moving? We're going to move that we're going to form a subcommittee and that Peter and I are going to serve on it and report back to this committee.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hold on a sec, I'm sorry, who seconded that? I'm ready whenever you're ready, Jimmy.
All right, let's move on to the Albany Loop and Creek Art, 7.3. This is just an update from you.
Yeah, yes. Okay, this one has a staff report as well, so you don't necessarily need to hear it all from me. So both projects are moving forward. I think the Albany Loop significantly faster maybe than the Creek Art, but here are some pictures that Brennan sent last week, just before the 4th of July.
wow.
Oh, good.
So it looks like all of the metal or a lot of the metal is in and big. That was the last meeting I was at, was the discussion between the 12-inch
Yeah,
diameter
And the
and
18-inch,
or 18 or maybe it was 10 and 12. Anyways, so they're the bigger pieces.
good.
They look great. The next steps for this are getting them installed, and I believe that the goal is still, so the fabrication is currently taking place. The artist reports that they're 80% complete. This is from the staff report that you received. And that the site work pouring foundation is to begin in late July and early August, with final installation happening in late August, early September. So in time for the beautiful summer months in Albany and local week.
When is it painted?
I'm not entirely sure. It says it's gonna, the final installation occurring in August. And I think it's painted in-house, right?
It says
Do I
the
remember?
painting will take place, it will take approximately 2 weeks after they're completely done.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe.
September.
Yeah, before they install it. So,
Did we ever have?
Oh, before they install it. Yeah,
Yeah.
they painted, I remember that from his thing. They paint it
Yeah, yeah.
in-house. So September.
September, and they were gonna bring us in a final color?
Oh, I'm not sure. I can find that out.
Is there going to be any sort of event around it?
we need to make an event around it, I think.
Absolutely.
We need to bring like music, dancers, something. We need to have a thing. So can the rec department of the city sponsor an event, or should the arts committee sponsor an event? We want to have a grand opening of the loop.
Yeah, and this is going to sound so technical. Sponsorship and partnership is such a weird back and forth that we've discussed
Okay,
for a
great. Tell
decade.
us what language you use.
The recreation department will for sure be involved in any sort of opening
Great.
on the Ohlone Greenway. Yeah,
Great.
just like we were for the
Peter
space. Yes, definitely Pier Street Park, but the space across the street from the senior center and everything like that. It's definitely our goal to.
Is there a fund? Is there a budget
I'll have to
for
get back to you
openings?
for that.
Okay, we're not going to have a meeting in August, and we think we're going to have this opening in September. So that's something that I would like to be part of working on, so that when we get right to our meeting in September, it hasn't already happened and we didn't know about it, or we organized.
You would definitely be in the
Okay,
loop.
in the loop.
Unintended.
Great, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I definitely think we should do something with that.
You'll be in the Albany Loop.
Can we talk about the creek art?
Okay, yes. So Creek Art, Frank Wing, I don't remember if you
We met him.
met Frank once or twice. This one I have a little bit more. I don't think we have any graphical representation from Frank on this. I worked with Frank when I was the staff liaison for the committee. So there was just a little bit of back and forth, I guess, and confusion with the artist on who is doing some of the work. He requires boring of the path to see what's underneath the path. We hadn't heard from each other in a while, and so now we're back on track discussing how to get that bore out. He has also run into a little bit of trouble with metal tariffs
Right.
due to current political situations, which he feels will make him go over budget. Staff is negotiating with him and working right now. It seems that there may be one or two. Does everyone remember what the creek art looks like? And there's graphic representation of flora and fauna of
Yeah.
the space. I think he believes that one or two of those may be out of each location due to increased costs of metal due
Oh,
to
that's too
trading tariffs.
That's really too bad.
However, this is another project that is in the forefront of the recreation side because of the expiring funds of WW Match. So we want to make sure that we get as much work on this done as quickly as possible, and that just requires the balance with the artist and ourselves.
Great, so but we can
Yourselves.
predict that this won't be finished or maybe in process in September or October? Not sure.
I don't know if I can answer that. I know that it is of utmost importance to get this finished.
Okay, great. So will you inform us if anything happens abruptly?
Yes.
Thank you.
So if is it possible to increase the outlay for the additional
Yeah.
Trump tariffs?
Yeah, the Trump funds.
I believe so.
Because we don't want, I mean, it was a nice, it would look meager,
Yeah,
we-
I would think, if we
Yeah.
had
Do you know how short he is or how much he thinks he'll go over?
I don't have enough information on that. Not jumping ahead items as well, but there could potentially be some money in the PAPP that wasn't spent. And if you take a look at that from an outside perspective, I don't think that there would be anything against allocating money that isn't spent to other projects.
great,
Because I would hate to see it get smaller.
great,
That would be the sense of the committee, right, to try and
yeah.
make up the shortfall somehow.
Would be anybody feel any other way about it?
No, I agree, but I kind of wonder that you would think that the metals would already be here at the wholesaler, so why would the tariffs, I don't know, I'm just a little suspicious of
Uh-huh,
that.
I think that's a
Reasoning.
very good question.
because I would
You've
never have
dealt
thought
with these
about
people before.
it. Okay. Should we move on? We're moving on, sorry, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
7-4, community
moving on.
projects, request for proposal. Staff will update committee on the community projects.
The staff received one application for the community projects in quite literally the 11th hour, 12th hour, 11th hour. However, it needs to be reviewed legally right now because the proposal is a mural on the side of an Albany business. I remember this from my time, and Peter, I'm sure, knows much more about it than I do, but there is a bit of a balance when putting publicly funded art
On a
on
private
private
space.
property.
Right.
Yeah.
But they did it, we didn't pay for the murals on the Ohlone Greenway.
No.
Was this, can I ask a question, was this proposal, did it have to do with Solano Avenue? Or,
I can tell you, it's on the side of Agon, the Nepalese food, right next to the Bevmo parking lot on San Pablo.
oh, it's
Oh,
on San
right.
Pablo.
Oh,
This is the guy
Location.
who did
This
the
is a great
Ohlone
location
Greenway.
for a mural.
Christian Munez,
Yeah.
Munez,
That's great.
Munoz, excuse me.
So my understanding, or at least I remember someone from staff saying that it's not necessarily disallowed, but we have to be very transparent about it. And it can't be construed as signage, so,
Right.
or an advertisement for that restaurant.
And that's what I remembered, that there being a bit of a delicate balance of it,
Yeah.
just like you said.
Right.
And so staff is getting to that. That was the only application given. Another idea to think about is how much work you want to spend in this. Also talking about the work plan you have coming up. I mean, this is 10,000.
This is part of the PAPP?
Yes. This is. Not to exceed $14,000 of the previous PAPP budget. So that's something to keep in mind.
Do you know, Liam, what the proposal was for, in the sense that he had to submit a budget, correct?
He did have to submit a budget, and I just unfortunately don't know enough about the application to give you that answer.
I guess, I'm a little, not that I don't trust the city attorney or anything, but I'm sure there are different ways of interpreting it, and we would like it to be interpreted very, very liberally, because this idea of having murals on business is kind of a key to at least one of the projects that we're talking about with the Economic Development Committee, murals on buildings being a very good way of, dressing up the town, the commercial district, making it a lot more appealing. So is it possible for, say, Brendan or I to have an interview with the city attorney and at least express our point of view? I mean, we're not lawyers or anything, but I guess we'd
Well, I'll be moving in the
like
same
it to be
direction.
decided in our favor,
Yeah.
however you want to put it. I guess we do not want to be cut out of the decision-making loop on this. We have a vested interest in how this turns out.
Liam, if I can, maybe it's worth noting for Ava potentially as well. I think Oakland has a lot of experience with murals on private property, some of which is facilitated or funded by city money. And so they would have, I guess, language or sample, procedures, et cetera, that might be worth looking at.
And the only information on this that I can give you was when Peter and I were working on the Fall into Haiku process, the concern was that for Fall into Haiku signs, that some houses may have an increased or decreased value due to city funds making it look better or making it look worse, and the neighbors across the street wouldn't be given the same opportunity. So that's all I know of the situation.
It's that experience that leads me to say I don't really want those people making this sort of decision without hearing a different point of view.
Got it.
That was kind of a ridiculous point that they made,
Absurd,
don't you think?
absolutely absurd.
All right, can we move on from this?
Can I just ask about the community projects? So is the idea that there is $14,000 a year to be spent on this kind of community project?
As I remember, the goal was to give a vehicle to community members who wanted to see art come to life in Albany, dependent on projects not to exceed $14,000. So if.
But it's an annual, is.
Well,
it's
no, it
repeating.
was, it was just for this PAPP. So if you found one amazing piece that was going to cost all $14,000, then it was going to be gone for this PAPP. And the next one, it could be revisited again.
I see. And I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
so do we know the amount of money in the Arts Fund?
No, I do not have that number for you right
And
now.
could we have that for the next meeting?
Yes.
Thanks.
Just, I don't know if you got the whole, I'll make this very quick. The PAPP was created because a community member wanted to have a piece of art on a city building. The Arts Committee approved it. It went to City Council. City Council said this is going to create too many door openings that don't have enough of a process behind it. So the PAP was created as a vehicle to spend that money, and then the committee wanted to make sure that there was still that avenue for the exact reason why this was created to have it open, and that's why the community projects was put in.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 7-5, Albany Film Fest. Peter?
I have no updates.
Great, let's move on. 7-6, Community Center Foyer Gallery.
I do.
Yes, go Cheryl.
Okay, we have the postcards for the upcoming show. There will be an opening. Looking for my postcards. There will be an opening on Sunday. Please try to come if you're around. As you know, the openings are from 4 to 6. Jess Olaf Booth is a painter. Her show goes up on Friday. I assume that will happen. She's been very difficult to work with, so.
Really, really sorry to hear that.
So I'm assuming it's going to happen. Nicole Rubio show came down today. She was delighted with us all the way around. Staff was, Liam, I cannot thank you enough for being so helpful. As some of you know, she's partially blind, and so she needed more help from staff than usual, and staff was amazing. I'm assuming everybody's coming in to paint and take care of our walls.
Yes.
They'll be ready by Friday.
Yes.
Absolutely, and we have staff set up for Sunday,
Yes.
and so the show is coming up on Sunday between 4 and 6. Please try to come, they're always fun. I don't know how many applications we have for shows coming up this fall.
I didn't ask Eva, sorry.
Last time I talked to Eva, there was only 1 or 2. So again, go out and beat the bushes, guys. We need more artists.
And how far away can they be, do you think? Like, if we know someone up in Mendocino, for example, is that too far? Is that okay?
It works for me. I have no problem with it. They have to bring the stuff down.
Sure,
We don't
sure.
pay for any of that kind of thing. But yes, if someone in Mendocino would like to come out and do a show for us, I have no problems with that. Does anybody else have a problem with it?
No.
Nope. We're just looking for good art in our gallery, and we've had lots of it, so we just need more. And again, if you know of someone who has had a show, it's 5 years. After 5 years, you can reapply, and hopefully your work will be slightly different or better or whatever. So please, 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 we need the applications in by the end of August.
Great, August 28th, yeah?
Whatever.
Something, yeah,
When
okay.
was
End of
Susan-
My
August.
feeling is as long as it's here before the September meeting, we're golden.
Okay, great.
When was Susan Adame's last show? Was that more recent?
It was more recent.
It was. So she's not eligible.
She's not eligible.
Cheryl, can you remind me where where does the call go out to? I know it goes on the Albany website, et cetera, but is it?
Albany website, and pretty much I go around and put out flyers all over the place. Also, I've gotten names of artists, and I email them and
Okay.
ask them to apply, and
Okay.
if you have more ideas, I'm open.
And
Put it
you've
on
contacted
Nextdoor.
those- Sorry.
Yes.
Our Nextdoor
bulletin
account, I
board.
put it on Facebook,
Okay.
Yeah, Facebook bulletin board.
yeah. And you put it on Instagram, I mean, you can,
I don't do that.
I do that.
I don't do Instagram, I don't do. any of
Okay,
those.
I do that, and I have done the Nextdoor thing, and I will repeat it.
Terrific.
And I will do the Facebook,
That would be great.
the Facebook,
I
and the
don't do-
Instagram.
I don't do either one of those
And you
things, so-
reached out to those Gilman art
You bet. All of
places?
them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great,
All of them indeed.
And Art Thou, that guy, Tom? Up-
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, everybody. They
Okay.
can
Yeah.
Let me into.
Yeah, and we just call people.
Talk to, is Rob is the guy at the gallery on Solano? Robbie?
Robbie
yeah,
Abrams, yes.
Robbie Abrams,
Talked
yeah.
to him, he said he would send it
Okay.
out to his people, I brought applications by. I went to the Richmond Art Center, I brought applications
Great.
there.
Well, everyone will wait till the last minute.
Everyone always waits till the last minute.
All right, so that, we know that. So that we know that, and we know,
Peter
you're
said
always
it.
nervous at this meeting.
I'm always nervous
Yeah.
at this meeting, and we seem to get lucky, and
It's going to be fine.
Flyer already made up?
yes, I have flyers in my car if you'd like some
Can you
flyers.
email one? Is it possible just to email it?
Sure.
Yeah, and that way I can forward it to some people.
I would be glad to. Yeah,
And can you email it to all of us?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Cheryl. 7-7, fall into haiku. Peter?
Right, so we made decisions at our last meeting, so I'll just recap that. I did send some text to Eva to put into the Albany program guide. I assume it's in? I haven't seen anything. You don't know?
For the fall into haiku.
Yeah.
You know, my current job, I'm not as involved in that stuff. So I would assume that it's in there.
Okay.
I can double check if you'd like me
Right.
to.
So just to refresh, we changing the theme this year from holidays to urban nature. The bay, the hills, falling leaves, shorter days, wind and rain, a change of clothing, hot chocolate on a cold day, football. So those are some of the things that maybe will inspire people to get down to writing haiku. The online submissions open on August 15th. They close on October 1st. Basically, it's all done online, but there will be some provision for people mailing things in. And we are supposed to be having a haiku gathering on Monday, October 1st, for sharing and writing. Becca Black, our poet laureate, is going to be organizing and leading that. Location, I think they picked a location, but I think it's somewhere in the library. I don't think it's Edith Stone, it might be someplace else, but
Do you remember
since it's
what time it is?
No, I don't actually have those details. I think it's likely to be around 6:30,
Okay.
somewhat early in the evening. Since things open on August 15th, look for it in in your mailbox. You'll probably get some sort of notice. And if you have friends or in your family that likes to write haiku, please encourage them to submit.
When does it close again?
October 1st, so it's like 6 weeks of,
Is there something we can do at the Solana Stroll?
yes. We should have a table at the Solana Stroll and actually have solicitations there and even invite people to write haiku on the spot. That's sort of
Yeah.
the nature of haiku anyway. So, yeah, we'll try and do that.
Yeah, that's, I
Could you
like
make a
that.
note of that, Leon, to
Yeah.
make sure we have a table there?
Also, Dinner with Albany and Local Week are happening around that time as well.
Yeah.
You won't have to do anything. We'll do all the work.
No, I'm just mentioning other large city
Oh,
events
yeah,
around the
yeah.
same time. No.
Oh.
My
Well, I know that,
message has been heard.
I wanted to give out postcards at Dinner with Albany, but Shelley 2 years ago said she didn't want us, distributing
Yeah,
trash.
the flyering,
She
flyering
didn't
is
call
not-
it trash. She said potential trash, I think is what she called it.
I think the flyering, and it's just, this one of those crazy slippery slopes, right, where we don't want
Yeah, I
lots of
understand.
flyers around,
More
so.
cleanup, yeah.
Yeah. All right, fantastic, thank you, Peter. New business? Future agenda items,
This is for September, right?
yes,
Okay.
I don't know if
September 17th.
I don't know if this is the right place on the agenda to mention this, but I've wondered lately two things. I met with Christian, the guy who did the art on the Ohlone Greenway, just to talk about murals and possibilities. And it was very productive, and I'm wondering if at some point we might want to have some type of meet and greet or like mixer with local artists and people involved in the arts community. Could be productive. And two, he was saying he received very little to no compensation for the work he did on the Greenway. It was him working with homeowners.
Yes.
And I was wondering if we might want to formally recognize him at some point with some type of, we appreciate your work, or thank you for something like that. No, money or anything like that, but just some type of, formal acknowledgement
Yeah.
of something like that.
I think that's a great agenda
food-
item.
food for
and
thought.
will have to be after, I think it will be maybe November or December, just because of what we have to do for the arts commit, for the foyer gallery, and then getting our work plan in order. But I think it's a really good idea. I think it doesn't do anybody any good not to thank people for their work.
Right.
I think it's a really important thing to do.
And on that same topic, I'm wondering, the creek and the Albany Loop, are there going to be signs saying the name of the art and who the artist is?
They all included a plaque in the budget.
Okay, because the one important piece of art that has never been recognized is Carlo Ferretti's Cove at the Albany Bulb. And just for a future agenda item, kind of restoring that official and officially sponsored piece of city art.
There was never a plaque there?
No. And at the opening, groundbreaking opening of it, he was not even acknowledged, apparently verbally, even though he was there. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
so-
How did that happen?
I don't know. It sounds like the whole construction of that was kind of a comedy of errors, but,
When
yeah,
did
I
that-
think,
when did
that
that
maybe we
happen?
can recognize all of these folks who have done
Actually,
these
that'd
various
be great,
sculptures.
you know?
I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be a good excuse to have that party you're talking about.
Yeah.
Agreed,
Yeah,
You
the
know?
meet and greet with all the artists and
Yeah,
stuff, and
actually,
people
that'd
work
be
done, and
great.
acknowledge, invite
Give them
people.
certificates of
Special
appreciation.
guests, how to make it better. I think it's a great idea.
Be nice to do.
Can we put that on, not next month's agenda, but put it on for, everybody keep it in the back of their mind to have an artist recognition party?
Sometime in the spring, maybe?
And I think that I think staff kind of takes future agenda items in a hopper, and we'll refresh the agendas when
Would you?
necessary. So
That'd be
I will
great.
make sure that this is all passed along, yes.
Great, thank you, Liam.
Maybe she's even listening right now, who knows?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure she is. Hi, Eva.
If she's on vacation, I hope not.
Okay,
The Economic Subdevelopment Committee, I think we might have some report, perhaps,
I
next,
hope.
in September, so that should be on. I'll give you a report on Fall into Haiku. The Film Fest, surely I'll have something to say by then.
I'm sorry, did you say Film Fest?
Yes.
I think that this whole unfinished business thing could sort of be repeated. I don't think there's anything on here that doesn't need checking in with next time.
Okay. Yes, and things just kind of all came together at a poor time, so I wish I had kind of more information for you, but.
That's okay.
We'll start generating a lot of this. And
That's great.
We'll have new updates for everybody.
Great.
The subcommittee can meet outside of the regular committee as well.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind as well for Jenny and Peter.
Did you make a note that we want to talk to the lawyer? Do we need, okay, great. All right. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, anybody make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Anyone second it? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes,
We're
I'd
up.
like to stay here.
Let's sit here and discuss stuff. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for chairing.
No problem.
Peter, you're a glutton for punishment.
Well, I don't know. Sounds like fun, right?
It does, but it takes time. That's the only problem.
Thanks.
Cheryl, what do you need from me, babe? Do you need me to get on Jessica Booth's back?
Do I have?
Susan, I have your flash.
I really did think.
Is she being difficult?
That's something I think would be fun to do, like, and get out there and look, but
I'd say that's difficult.
I know that
Realistically.
sounding fun takes no time.
Yeah.
When you actually do it,
This actually sounds like a lot of work, especially
It depends
have
on
to
kind
deal
of
with
what
artists.
you propose and what you're gonna do. I don't exactly know the levels that Rosemary gets, but generally it's a 60-40
I would
split.
appreciate that. She is supposed to set up her show.
And then obviously everything
I
else
have
is
no
taken
idea
care of
what
by
time
us.
she's going to be.
Did you take notes from our last meeting?
The classroom space.
This one or where we met?
Sometimes with
Yeah, I have a little to-do list.
Good, because I
that can't be done.
Yeah, well, that's, I know how
For
it is, so
example,
I wrote myself in like, do these three things.
Oh, good.
So,
Is there anything that you need me to
They have
do?
their
not
live
yet, I need to start,
They're live models.
like,
So
one of
they
them was
say
to look at the ordinance, which I'll take care of, and then I think I was gonna draft
Class like that,
cover letter, and like, you know, the first part of like, if you wanna have a mural, this is what you need to do or think of. I think once I start drafting it, I'll have questions. Okay. And then we'll go from
And
there, but I think it
Rosemary
makes sense
Chu,
to have
who
something
hopefully been
concrete.
in contact.
Yeah, well, let's see if we can,
Okay, she's the best person to talk
well,
to. She
you
kind
may
of
have
knows
difficulty
why
during the
and
day,
what
but
things
maybe,
are appropriate for
I mean, if
materials.
you have time, we
supplies,
can meet
and
with
whatnot.
the city attorney.
So it's you know,
But I can
it's
go
most
down there
often used
If
in cooking.
If I have enough time,
Because,
it's easy for
you
me
know,
to
whether they
schedule.
go to a
I can
farmer's
make it.
market
Okay, comes up
or
last minute, might be
design
hard.
or something
Yeah.
like that, it just.
Just before here, I was meeting with a woman who works for the Oakland Public Arts Commission, and so she was talking about some of the
Yeah,
like,
as the
pitfalls
instructor.
and pros and
Yes,
cons about
we
stuff like this.
we have kind of gotten in
I think
trouble in the
there's-
past where people who run their own businesses
Yeah,
then solicit to
and
the
then like
people.
art on
So we do kind of recommend
private
that you
buildings and
not
all that.
use
If
it,
it is just
use
a
it as
private building and it's a
informative,
private
not
transaction, it's not a
necessarily right,
problem.
But yeah, you can get all
City's
of those.
involved, there is some stipulation.
And then the other thing that some teachers have done
Eyes
is,
that need to be
they've said
dotted and T's that need to be crossed, stuff like that.
I guess
So
this
But
would
it's not
Yeah,
impossible.
no, it's like.
I would like to
possible. She said the one that is really
correspond with you during.
problematic,
I would deal with Jessica.
I
They
would
use,
appreciate that.
let's say money
Before I
like
left town, I left town
the retirement
Yeah.
community developed here, and
on
they put it in
Monday.
their own art instead of.
And the other option to get around that as well
That's
is,
when
you know, you can always send information. to
Categorized differently than it's seen as like an improvement.
I've never really experienced too much of a problem with sending emails
Somehow
out
the
in that
city
way.
would use it
Or
or
with
assess
the
it.
instructors sending out emails, I think it's great to get to
Expect it
know
to
the
stay
person.
there in some ways.
So she would be your first filter.
Yeah, but this is for, I
You
guess,
can get all
what you're
of the
saying is that
exact,
when it's part of
different of
these
us, you know, whether it's
1%
Brennan or
projects or
myself or
whatever it is,
Friday,
or Eva, you know, we can help you
somehow a different
zone in on
classification.
certain things that we help with.
I have my existing building and I
But she's
just
your
want to
first
do a
person
mural.
to chat with and
That's
get
one thing.
at least
But if
ready
it's
for
a new structure, in lieu of the 1%, we're gonna do this art thing.
I'm full.
It's
You can,
somehow
I
a
mean,
different
we get calls
classification.
Oh, I wonder.
all
Well,
day,
that may
every
just
day,
be the
not
way
all,
their,
but from people,
their program evolved.
we get
Because
calls
it sounds to
from
me
people
like
saying, you know, how many people
if
do
it was
do
us
I need to be the
and they
first
were
year
saying
student?
we're
Like, are
gonna
we
do a
getting
mural,
things like that. So, and I always like to recommend, you know, run
try
a
to
class
go
once or
along with our
twice, you know,
regular, I mean, we already
sometimes
have a
that first time
mechanism
around,
to
people just don't see it in the activity guide, or it's just
view
new,
it,
you know.
assess it,
Um,
approve it, and.
Kids Carpentry is a perfect
et cetera.
example of that. The first time we
It
had
has to
Kids
be
Carpentry,
visible,
it wasn't
yeah,
full.
all the
Now,
criteria that we have.
I
if
think
you
that
fill up that class
the place the
a
city
week
or
after
we
the
could play a
activity
role
comes out
facilitating
somehow.
things
So I
like
think
that
it's just
is
word of mouth is so
making,
powerful.
Yeah.
not writing the contract, but
Susan,
making
I also
sure,
wanted to tell you, I didn't want to say it during
in a sense, like she was mentioning an example, it might be an extreme case where, you know, a landlord or a landlord-led artist, you know, do murals over this building, they liked it, they, you know, were kind of invested in it, and then he said, I'm gonna sell the building, so I'm gonna repaint, you know, all the murals. I don't know the details, but she said the artist actually sued
Right.
with the expectation of having, we thought we added value, we thought, we had an expectation of this being here. So stuff like that, if the city were somehow involved in that, they might be party to,
Right, I mean, it had to be part of the contract, you know, it's like, I think in Europe they call it moral rights or something, you know, where you can't just do that, so, yeah. And I-
so that would be something to consider is how the contracts work out. Interesting. She seems to be available if we have questions going down the line.
And this, what's the?
One thing that struck me is just listening to her talk, is a lot of the success they've had is having effective liaisons between the business community and the artists.
So,
And kind of collective funding, so the tourism agency has started its whole thing,
the idea is obviously just to get money or make sure the developer creates something to recruit some of the FTL.
Yeah.
And then I think that maybe we just got a little overwhelmed with the amount of developers. Here's a chunk. So it was being built up. The art in the park was spent on that, right? So I call them Pringles, but they're the waves down the Ocean View on that pedestal right at the entry. The mosaic of the Terrace Park and Long Song, which was in the Memorial Park. Those were all from it. And those were the first thing.
And is there a record, I mean, is there a report on how much those cost and what is?
Yes, there is, but it's not as massive as that. We can. But I'm just not entirely sure. But yes.
So, yeah, because that's something I'd like to request, like for our next meeting, is that we have a report on, that whatever is not in here, like, the ordinance was passed on X, and then in 2011, we had this much come in, 2012, we had this much come in, and then how it was spent. I think that would be really useful to help us think.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
That's a good idea. Yes. I kind of came in right as I took over from Isabel Ledoux, she's the assistant city manager. And we just had this string of people doing their own work. The umbrellas over at Sprouts. I call them umbrellas. So if it's in the parking
the
lot.
tall
Yeah,
things, okay, yeah.
And then the Bruce Beasley metal piece.
Yeah.
Those were all done by the developer. And
And
then
it would be good to know what the cost of those were also.
And
Because the
we-
thing is with the problem with having the funds for public art is that the cost of the sculpture becomes whatever is in the account.
Right.
So, and I think that that's something that we really have to keep an eye on.
I think situation that we're talking about where it's my job to then pass along.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
as soon as I hear back anything of the activity guide or
Yeah.
refreshers, it tends to be a hurry up and wait creation.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
And we get everything lined up and then it's like, oh, I need this answer
Yeah.
today.
Do you know who the designer is, the graphic designer?
Yes, his name is Mark. Oh my gosh, and I cannot remember his name. And it's just such an amazing story. He saw our old activity guides, and obviously he's a professional
Yeah.
graphic designer. And he's just like, I would like to help this. I would like to, do my community service. And he does all of his work with us for free.
Wow.
And he is really big in graphic design. He's mainly typology.
Oh, is it
creating
Mark
font.
von Bronckhorst?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. MV fonts.
Yeah, yeah.
MVP fonts.
Yeah,
MV fonts.
yeah. No, because the humor and the sophistication of the cover is just so great.
Yeah.
I love
And
like
Shell
the ugly
definitely-
sweater at Christmas. And it's always, yeah, because other cities don't have, a look that's as cool as ours, frankly.
I think that was the goal, and also not to take anything from Shelley, who works extremely hard on getting that out. I think that they kind of, whether either one of them comes up with an idea of the cover or one is like, is this too ridiculous? And then they kind of discuss it out. So, yeah, it's one of